Intrigued. Anyway, what else is new?
Lockout, from an original idea by Luc Besson. There used to be... sorry, I just hit the microphone.
Does that mean he wasn't really very much involved in this project?
No, he has that production that it's from the production stable of Luc Besson. There used to be, there probably still are, a slew of straight-to-video movies by Charles Band, and they would all begin from an original idea by Charles Band, to which the standard response was, which is interesting, Charles Band never had an original idea in his life, but it just meant blah, blah, blah. And in the case of the Luc Besson, one could pretty broadly say the same thing. I mean, this is essentially a mashup of loads of different films, what you have seen. I mean, so there's, Alien 3 and Outland and Con Air via the... I mean, for the sake of brevity, let's call it Assault on Precinct Apollo 13. Story is, there's a space prison, right? This is the safest prison on Earth because it's in space, okay? And what happens is the prisoners get put into cryogenic suspension to serve out their sentences. There is a mission to the space prison off Earth by the president's daughter, who has various human rights worries about the ethical problems of freezing people and sticking them out in space. Whilst she is out there, out in space, having these ethical worries, inevitably there is a breakout, masterminded by a couple of guys who seem to have escaped from train spotting. And suddenly, the whole prison is under a siege situation. It's been taken over. The inmates have taken over the prison. The president's daughter is there. They can't just blow the prison out of the sky, which they would do in any other futuristic movie, because, hey, it's a futuristic movie. They can't because the president's daughter is there. What are they going to... How are they going to... Let's call a rogue agent. Somebody, he's one of those guys, he's tough, he smokes, he plays by his own rules, but he's our kind of guy in the shape of Guy Pearce. Let's send him out there to sort it out. So he goes out there to sort it out, and therefore what you have is, on the one hand, the president's daughter, she's the president's daughter. On the other hand, the guy, he's the rogue. And together, you think that they'll be able to, together, to find something to make away, because he's chalk, right? And she, in a world of chalk, he was chalk, she was cheese. Together, they were chalk and cheese. Here's a clip.
Who are you? Who sent you?
Your old man did.
My dad. What did he say?
Well, I didn't get to meet him personally. He kind of delegated your rescue. We had a big conference on the corn surplus.
You're kidding me.
No, apparently we should all be eating more corn.
About my father.
Oh, yeah, I made that other bit up.
Did he have a message for me?
Yes, you are adopted.
Are you the only type of jerk they found for this kind of mission?
The only one stupid enough to say yes.
So, what's the plan? Surely you have a plan to rescue the hostages?
What hostages?
The hostages, the staff, the guards. Should I write it out in crayon?
I came here to rescue you, and mission accomplished. And quite well, I might add.
Are you just thrilled being yourself all day, or is it a part-time job? I'm not kidding. We can't just leave them.
Leave who?
The hostages!
There's the setup. It's a sort of ragtag bit of, all the other movies that you've seen, and the central thing is, are you going to find the interaction between these two people funny? It was one of those classic things. I was sitting there in the National Press Show, and every now and then you get a movie... People always talk about movies being guilty pleasures. And generally, they're not that guilty, because generally, if you enjoy any movie at all, it's absolutely fine.
That whole guilty pleasure thing is
I know.
nonsense.
Yeah. But the thing was, there was something about... because... all the stuff, the special effects are remarkably unspecial, particularly in an age in which a movie like Iron Sky, which incidentally was going to be out this week and the review has now been moved back to May, so it's that thing about, in 1945 Nazis went to the moon, who knows when they're coming back, they keep changing the release date. But when a movie that cost absolutely thrumpence can look as great as Iron Sky, there's not much excuse for special effects being as unspecial as they are in something like Lockout. And all the plot points, all the sort of, the significant bits that you have all seen in other movies. So the question is simply, is there enough pleasure in seeing the two central characters, in seeing the rogue played by Guy Pearce and the president's daughter doing that, that hard-boiled quippage stuff? And actually, in the case of Lockout, surprisingly enough, for a lot of it, it does get away with it just on the strength of them doing it. So now, obviously, it's not up there with... I was thinking about things like The Last Boy Scout, and, Guy Pearce is basically channeling Bruce Willis, because there was a point when Bruce Willis did this stuff better than anybody else. Bruce Willis was the guy that you sent in, and he'd do the thing of talking whilst having a cigarette in his mouth and being really sort of, profanely rude, but in a way that was kind of entertaining. In a vest, Normal. Yeah, exactly. And, Last Boy Scout still sort of stands, up in that kind of high watermark way, as it works on the strength of that alone. In the case of this, there was enough funny quippage. The quippage has to be quite funny in order to justify the whole venture. But I was sitting there thinking, yeah, go on. It is just going to be them doing the sort of the hard-boiled dialogue thing, isn't it? And actually, I laughed more than I thought I was going to. And consequently, during the course of what is essentially, an overblown B-movie using bits and, from every other movie that you've ever thought of, and Guy Pearce basically doing an impression of Bruce Willis, and the whole setup being completely all over the place, I kind of enjoyed myself. And then afterwards, I came out, and another film critic who I like very much, Tim Roby, he said to me, did you enjoy that as much as I did? And there was that sort of sense of, we both sat there and watched the movie and thought, yeah, you know what? Considering just how lumpen the premise and all the rest of it looked, and considering all the things that are manifestly wrong with the film, we did enjoy ourselves, and I did enjoy it more than I thought I was going to. And watching Guy Pearce channeling Bruce Willis, doing that, every other line is a quip and a rude quip, and was actually quite. And his character starts off by being introduced to us as a guy being interrogated who is punched repeatedly in the face by Peter Stormare's bemuscled henchman. So the whole thing is that he feels no pain. He feels no pain at all. So that's it. I mean, there's not much character arc in it. He's a bloke what feels no pain and has got a good line in quippage, and that's it. But on that level alone, it just about gets away with it.
Lumpen is an interesting word, normally associated with proletariat, isn't it? The lumpen proletariat?
Yeah, but
when else is it appropriate?
Well, it's appropriate when you're talking about lumpen B-movie stodge, it's perfectly fine.
Yes. I just need to check that